What is up, guys? Welcome back. And today I'm here actually with a special guest. Say hello
Hello,
and introduce yourself, I guess.
I'm Corey. How's it going?
Uh, yeah, so we've been, this week on YouTube it's been Geek Week, and we've seen a couple of videos about gaming history. And since that's kind of our big thing, or at least my big thing, we love gaming. We all have our history in it, and we decided it might be kind of fun to do our history. We've shared, a bunch of our past, I think, throughout a bunch of different videos, and maybe even recorded some like this, but it's not all quite on one package. So we decided to do it now because it's fitting. So Corey is a little older than me, or at least has a well, you are older than me,
I was about to say I'm definitely older than you.
but the most important part is you started gaming much earlier than me.
Yeah.
And we're gonna go through the generations. We'll probably take turns talking about kind of how we were doing in that generation. It'd be kind of interesting to compare it, with different people. So go ahead, Corey, and start us off.
So my first system was the Nintendo Entertainment System. At least it's the first system I remember playing. As a kid, I may have played a Pac-Man in a pizza place or something. But the first system I remember playing was Nintendo, and it was Super Mario Bros. And Duck Hunt. Those are the two games I remember playing early on the most. Um, and I mostly remember uh, not doing very well because I was very young when I first started playing them, so I don't think I was quite old enough to play them.
Do you know how old you were?
I can't remember when we got it. I was born in '86, so that's like the year it came out, or maybe it came out the year before or something. It was right around there.
Okay.
Um, but I don't know when we got the system. We usually got them a little later. So I mean, I probably wasn't playing it till I was like 5 or 6, something
Uh,
like that. But I was probably still a little too young. So then sometimes I would watch my older sisters play it because they were in their teens already. So they picked it up. So I think I've watched them, and then once I got a couple of years older, then I actually played it more myself. But I remember one of the things that kind of talking about early games kind of influenced us later, or like showed hints of what we'd be like when we are older, like an Excite Bike. I hated playing the actual game. I was terrible at it, but I like building the maps in it because you could build the track, and that's kind of what I do with a lot of games. Even new ones like Far Cry 2, I spend all my time in the map editor, not really messing around with playing the game itself that much. So I thought it was kind of funny thinking back to Excite Bike and how I mostly just built the tracks and then would have other people try them. um, so after that, let's see, it was Nintendo, then Super Nintendo. I mean, there wasn't really much else out. I also had a Genesis, but I think we had the Super Nintendo first. And one of the things I love about games now is a good story, um, things that sort of make you feel different emotions and things that can kind of pull your heartstrings. And Legend of Zelda was one of the first ones that did that. And obviously not as effective as newer games that have a full orchestra
Voice
set
acting.
behind them and voice acting and mocap, and you know what I mean.
Yeah.
But it was the first game that I felt scared and sad and happy. Different things are happening. Like even just like there would be rain. It kind of made it kind of just very. I remember the first scene when it's raining. It has this kind of eerie sounding music. I remember kind of feeling kind of weird about it, and that was on purpose. Like things like that, I hadn't really felt in a game before. So that kind of definitely led up to the games I would like later on that did have more emotion and effect to it.
Yeah, these games are like way before me. Like, we'll get to when I started playing, but I did actually end up playing a Super Nintendo, I think, in my daycare, and so like that I
Nice.
barely have any memory of it, but like I have at least some part of it. But yeah, it was just kind
Yeah.
of funny how my that's how I ended up playing Super Nintendo. I played like N64 before I even played Super Nintendo.
Oh wow, that's pretty funny. Well, I think you're born at a time when that would make more sense because
Yeah,
what year were you born?
91.
91. Yeah, so like by the time you were growing up, 96 is when is when the N64 came out, right? So it makes sense that that would be the one you would play first. um, the other big one for me that I remember, I was younger, we'd go on a lot of family trips down to Idaho to visit family, and it would always be Game Boy. Um, I remember one of my favorites was actually Wario Land. It's kind of a really weird, technically inside the Mario universe game where you're playing as Wario. I remember being weirded out as a kid and being like, wait a minute, why am I playing as Wario? He's the bad guy, isn't he? I remember thinking that was weird when I was a kid. But I remember having a lot of fun with that. One of the memories I remember the most, and it sounds like you had a similar kind of thing, was the screen was always, if it was dark, you couldn't play it.
Yeah.
So if you're driving at night, you had to just sit there and just either listen to whatever your parents were listening to on the radio, which I didn't want to do as a kid. So it was the coolest thing when I got one of those little attachable lights. That was just like the most amazing thing ever. Like, what? I can play in the Game Boy at night now? I just
And,
remember that being so awesome.
and you're talking about like the original Game Boy, right?
Oh yeah, the black and white or gray. I don't know what you call
Green
it. That
green and
weird
black,
green. Yeah,
the
exactly.
fat
Whatever.
one.
Yeah, the real beefy original one.
Yeah, I mean, Game Boys didn't have like a backlight screen until I believe
Oh,
SP, and
well, I think they.
no,
You
because
may be right. Yeah.
yeah, because I played the Game Boy Color and I have the exact same experience as you. Game Boy Color, Game Boy Advance, and it
Hmm.
wasn't until the Game Boy SP, which I believe was kind of its major selling point, which now is actually a big deal. Like, if you ever have an iPhone and you put the brightness all the way down, it's kind of similar to what you'd do. And it's like I
Hmm.
can't see anything, even in a nightly lit place.
Yeah, exactly.
So yeah, a bunch of lights and connections and yeah. So like, even years later, I still had that same experience.
Yeah. Well, and even like similar to the early Kindles, like now I have a Kindle that doesn't. It's not technically a backlight, but it has like a light on it. But the early Kindles did not. It's the same kind of thing. You'd always need a lamp. So if you're reading in a car, you wouldn't be able to read at night with a Kindle. It's kind of even the color reminds me of the original
Yeah.
Game Boys because they did have kind of a green tint to it. Yeah.
Yeah, the only one I've ever saw of those was my brother had one. Like he found it, like when I was a couple years old, and he was just like, "Huh, that thing's kind of big compared to my Game Boy."
Oh yeah, yeah. You forget until you hold one. You're like, oh wow, that thing is beefy.
Yeah,
Well, it required like four AA batteries to think.
yeah, it was something crazy like that.
Yeah, it's ridiculous. So I guess I mentioned it quickly, but the Sega Genesis I also played. I've always kind of been like, I've never been like because I have four brothers. We would kind of each get a different system a lot of times. So we would just play whatever. We were never really like, oh, I only play Nintendo or I only play Sega or when the new system's gone, I only could play Sony. We just whatever wherever there were fun games, we would get and play the system. Like we just don't care. So Sega Genesis, we had a lot of fun with too. I remember my sister hated when I would play Sonic games because I would get really hyper. Because the game is just about being hyper, basically, about Sonic just spinning and just running and twisting around everywhere. So she would always hate when I played it because then afterwards I would just be bouncing off the walls. um, and I played pretty much all the Sega Genesis ones except I, I I played the first one a little bit, but not as much as I played 2, 3, and Sonic and Knuckles quite a bit. And oh, that reminds Sonic and Knuckles was awesome because the top of the cartridge flipped open, and then you could put Sonic 3 cartridge into the top of that cartridge. So you could place Knuckles in Sonic 3. That was like another one of those moments that I thought that was like the coolest thing ever that you could like put one game into the other and have it like modify the original game.
It still
I
sounds
think
pretty cool.
yeah, and actually I think it worked with Sonic 2 as well. I think you could play as Knuckles in Sonic 2. I don't know if it worked with Sonic 1, but we never owned it to try it, but I think it did work with those two. Yeah, it's so weird. Like it's pretty much unheard of. I think
Like,
someone's taken a picture of like they put a Game Genie and then something else and
oh yeah,
then Sonic and Knuckles and then Sonic. So it's like six cartridges high or something like that. ridiculous.
That's like early game DLC
Yeah,
or early.
yeah, kind of. I didn't think about that. That's it's a precursor to DLC.
Yeah. At least you got a full game though when you did that.
Yeah, it's true. Um,
I mean, I guess now sometimes DLC does that, but
yeah, there were other Sega Genesis games that we played, but those were the ones we liked the most. Like Bubsy, we liked at the time, but like going back and looking at that game, it's like garbage. It's so bad.
I've never
It's like
even
a
heard of Bubsy.
really, it's not a popular game. It's like it's just a really bad platformer. Honestly, it's terrible.
Okay.
And then Cyborg Justice I actually tracked down. For years, we were trying to remember what this was. We rented it when this guy was babysitting my brother and I once, and like three of us took turns playing it. But the funny thing is, you could rebuild the enemies after you defeat them. So our babysitter, he would just to annoy us, he would rebuild the enemy after it would die every time. So then we had to fight it over and over again. We're just like, stop it, Aaron, stop rebuilding it. But he was just sitting there laughing. I thought that was pretty funny. That's totally something I would do now.
Yeah.
um, so, did you play any PC games in the early '90s at all, or well, I guess yeah, no, that you were
No,
like late
I was
'90s,
late
right?
90s. I was like right after the mid 90s,
Okay.
96.
Oh yeah, I'll just run through the early '90s stuff, and then we can go in the late '90s where you kind of started.
Yeah.
Um, so in the early '90s, what's funny is like I didn't really have that many on computers at home. My dad didn't really like, still doesn't really like video games that much, but grandpa's computer for whatever reason, I think he bought it used from someone, and it came loaded with like all the best games for whatever reason. So he had Wolfenstein 3D, he had Doom, Scorched Earth, just like a bunch of different games, but Wolfenstein and Doom were ones I definitely would not have been allowed to play. But like no one even knew that games were on there, so I would just go over there and play them. um, but yeah, so that was my first introduction to first person shooters, and those were the first two. I mean,
I think
it,
my first computer game that I remember playing was Shooting Gallery. Did you ever hear that?
shooting gallery.
I don't know what exactly. It seemed like one of those ones that just like comes in like with solitaire, something like that. But
Oh,
for whatever reason, we had a computer in our garage, and our garage is not the most friendliest place. It's not like a nice built up one. It's just like we just put the computer there, and I think I don't know if I have a picture anymore, but it was a picture of just like me and my cousins, at like 5, 6 years old, or even younger, playing Shooting Gallery, which it was just it was kind of a first person shooter where you have a cursor and then you click on the bottles basically, and
are
it's
there
just
like bottles and baseballs and alarm clocks and stuff?
I think so. I don't remember all of
I'm
it.
looking at like a screenshot right now. That's
Jeez.
funny.
So that's the first person shooter. I'm just kidding.
Nice. I mean, that's the first on rails shooter. Okay. um.
When I looked up this Wii, what the hell?
Hmm?
Go ahead, go ahead.
Oh, okay. So continuing my map editing stuff, kind of was SimCity. I did play the original first, and then I played 2000 a little later. I don't remember what the gap was between those games, but I was never very good at them. But I still loved playing it. And then basically, when things go bad, just like everyone, you used to go in and send in the monsters and destroy everything once you get fed up with how terrible your city's turning out. For me, it was always I think it started in 2000 is when you had to add in all the water lines. It was just a nightmare to make that stuff work right. You had to add all the water towers, hook up all the pipes for all the buildings. It was just a lot of micromanagement. A lot of the stuff that they streamlined in the new one, but also screwed up a myriad of other things, obviously. But at least they had that part better in the new one. um, that's my biggest memories from the early '90s on PC was just mostly introduction to first person shooters, and that concept, and really enjoying those types of games. Um, I didn't really. There were a lot of strategy games at that time, but that was kind of before, like RPGs and strategy games. I didn't touch until like late '90s, early 2000s, like the earliest for whatever reason. I love them now, but for whatever reason, I just didn't even touch them back then for whatever reason.
Well, kids usually don't play those games.
Yeah, that's true. Well, but some of my friends did. Like they all liked Civ. and Age of Empires and things like that. And it wasn't that I didn't like them; I just never really tried them because I don't know, I just didn't. Sometimes you just don't try things for whatever reason. Like I probably would have liked them, I just never did for whatever reason. It may have been that the learning difficulty just seemed too harsh or something at the time. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, well, going back to SimCity, I did actually play a couple of SimCity games. Not SimCity, just sim games in general. Like,
Like
I
Sim
did.
Coaster
Yeah, well, yeah,
or
well,
Sim
roller
Park or
coaster.
whatever it's called.
I did play Sim Park, Sim Theme Park or whatever, which I
Oh,
tried
nice.
buying actually recently, and I
Hmm.
did, and it didn't work on like new computers, and I was
Oh,
so sad because it's like Roller Coaster Tycoon, but a little bit
you
easier.
can probably get it to work, but
Maybe I
it
just
usually takes some
yeah
work
I
to
was
get
just
it
like
working.
I know I'm gonna play this for like 10 minutes and be bored of it anyway, so
Yeah.
that game I played also like Sim Tower. I think you've mentioned playing that before.
Oh yeah. Oh, I forgot about that.
I love Sim Tower for whatever
Sim
reason.
Tower was awesome.
It's just
I,
it's kind of amazing how you see all these little creatures, walking by. It sounds like a big office place, and you get to see it all. To me when I was watching it. I think I mostly watched it. I don't know if I actually played it at all, but uh, it was kind of cool. It was like just seeing all these little things. Like, granted, it was all just kind of like pictures or whatever, kind of going back and forth between. Like, it wasn't like not each character was actually acting on a real rhyme or reason,
right.
um, but it was just kind of cool to see it happen. It seemed really, amazing to me when I was first watching my dad play that. And
Yeah.
yeah,
Well, it's funny. You kind of sound like my brother Nathan. He early on mostly watched me play games, not even because I like wouldn't let him play. Because a lot of times he liked to watch people play games for whatever reason.
yeah, I actually like watching people playing games now, but
Hmm.
I think at that time that was just because I was too young.
Yeah.
But
Yeah. Mentioning the other sim game reminds me that at that time in kind of the mid early '90s, maybe a little late too, was they had like a million sim games. Like they don't really do that anymore. There was Sim Copter, there was Sim City, there was Sim Tower, Sim Ant, Sim Farm, and I played pretty much like all of them
there's like an
a
ant farm
lot
game.
during that time.
That
Hmm?
ant farm. There's like an ant farm game. Was that Sim Ant Farm? I don't know.
I mean, this Sim Ant, you like, well, in this one, you like build your underground ant colony, but then you like go up and then you can break into the
Yeah,
house and get food and
I
stuff.
played that. That was awesome.
I never got to the point where I could successfully get inside, but I would always try. I think I was a little too young
You know where I
to
think I
really get
got
that
most
one.
of these? Do you remember or ever had like book sales at your school? Like what are they called?
I was
They're like
homeschooled.
okay. Well, I guess not. There was like this thing where if you like sold books or items or something like that and you got like prizes. And for some odd reason, I don't know if this was just at the same time and I remember them or they actually had some of these games as like prizes.
Hmm.
We I don't know if I don't know what it was. So I ended up getting like so I kind of connected to if people, did not wasn't homeschooled, they might remember because I know my brother who's 30 years old right now, he also had this, so I'm sure it goes pretty far back. But
Hmm.
yeah, I just remember that's how I connect these two. Because like Sim Ant is like I would probably have never known this without that. I'm guessing, but I don't know.
So you're saying like when you buy a used book, it would come with a game or something?
No, like you sold it to people, I think, or you can buy enough things. I don't remember it that well. Should ask my
Oh, okay.
cousin who recently had it done. But
Okay. That kind of sounds like library stuff too. A library
yeah,
does things like that too.
it's something like that. Anyways, went to
Nice.
the mid '90s, late '90s.
Sure.
Do you
Yeah,
want to
late '90s. Hmm?
go ahead?
Oh, okay. Sorry. For me, it was kind of like the Half-Life era when first-person shooters were still kind of evolving. Um, I feel like we hit a point with Call of Duty where it kind of reached its kind of like it's not going to evolve much. It's just going to iterate from here and not really like take big jumps. But Half-Life at the time was a big jump forward as far as like the thing that I really liked about it was there was no cutscenes and there was no loading screens. Technically the game loads when you hit an area, but it never takes you out of the experience. So it was very different at the time, and I thought it was pretty cool how you play continuously through the game, and the story kind of unfolds just right in front of you. So that was pretty. Obviously it had a lot of scripted things that would happen, but they just happened more naturally. So I thought that was when I played at the time. I thought that was really cool, and it was one of the first ones that at least started facial animations. It's obviously terrible by today's standards, but at the time I thought it was pretty cool that their mouths were moving at least. Before then, it wasn't necessarily standard in
Yeah.
first-person shooters for the mouths to move that much. Um, uh, trying to think what else was like the. I mean, this list is not going to be every game we ever played, obviously,
Yeah.
because I'm not mentioning a million. I'm the ones that really stood out in my mind that bring back a lot of cool memories are the ones I'm talking about here. Half-Life was a big one, or SimCity 3000, just because that was still what I still loved. I think that was the last SimCity game I played, and I had fun with that one, but I was kind of done with it for a while after that. And that's kind of when they stopped making sim games. Well, I think they technically made SimCity 4, but that was it. Like they didn't really make much else.
I think they started making just The Sims.
Yeah, that's true. Well, it's because that one sells like a bajillion copies, like for every expansion pack too.
Yeah. And I
Um,
was one of those sales.
nice. For whatever reason, I didn't get Sims back in the day.
When did it come out? So,
I remember being like interested in it and mean like wanting to get it, but then I didn't for whatever reason.
yeah, this is
Um,
2000.
2000,
Yeah.
yeah. I don't know why. Maybe I may have kind of I don't know. It's really weird because I liked all the sim games. You would think I would buy that one too.
Yeah.
I don't remember why. It may have been that it was a T-rated game, and maybe I wasn't allowed to play those then. Because basically, but most of the time I wouldn't follow that rule, and I would just play whatever I want. So I don't know. Because I mean, I was playing Doom and stuff. It's not; would be M-rated games now. So I don't know. But yeah, I kind of wish I played it because I like Sims 3 and stuff. But I don't know, for whatever reason, didn't. Those are the late '90s ones that stick out to me the most. But what about your games?
So yeah, so I did start around 96, I would say. I can't remember the exact dates because kind of like the same with you with the Super Nintendo. I don't know exactly when we actually got the games,
Yeah.
but these are when the games came out. So actually, I do have a funny story about The Sims. So when I was younger, I played a lot with my dad and my brother, or watched them or whatever. And so one of the games we ended up getting was Sims. And I think my dad was playing it. This was the very first time we're playing. Yeah, we didn't do the tutorial or something like that. And in The Sims, if you don't know what it is, it's basically you're living another life, I guess. And one of the things you need to do is you need to feed them, they need to sleep and stuff like that. And so we built a very simple house, or it was like an empty house or something. We went in, we had a family that was probably based off of our family, and they were hungry. All of them were hungry, and it's like there's a refrigerator right there. And so we'd keep telling them to go over there. They would go over there and like put their hands up and shake their head, and then like go away, going like I'm hungry. And we're just like, what the hell is going on? Why are they not eating? And then like we didn't know how to change the camera angle or anything like that. We found out that the refrigerator was facing the wall, so the
Oh
back
my
of the
gosh.
refrigerator was facing them, and we were like, oh, you could twist them. And so it was just hilarious after that. And then after that, we both liked Sims a lot, and we kept playing. But ironically, the first game. So I'm not one of those kids that was at 3 years old, and my dad put a Nintendo controller in my hand, and we played Mario Brothers together or something like that. But I started around. So like I said, I was born in '91. Started around '96 to '98. So I was only like 5 or 6. But my first games I played were PC, and I played StarCraft and Command and Conquer Red Alerts. And you were saying like you weren't into RTSs, and those were my first games. And
That's so
like,
weird.
I mean, I even have a story of like I was playing one of the Command and Conquers with my cousin. He was watching, helping me play or whatever. And I accidentally went into the fog of war, like scrolled into there, and I didn't know how to get back. And he's like, because if you don't Command and Conquer, you don't have like a radar until you build it, and it was before that. So like I was trying to find my house or my base. He's like to the left, and I would go to the right, like going to the right. I'm like, and I didn't even really have full like knowledge of my left and right at that time, and I was kind of
Oh
freaking
wow.
out. So I think that was added to it. I mean, that just shows you how young I was playing these games. And and yeah, I mean, it's weird how I started playing these games so young, and even to then, even now, like I still love RTS games. I'm not good at them anymore, but yeah, StarCraft stayed with me from '98 all the way to like when StarCraft 2 came out, basically. And I guess I'll talk about that later. But and the other thing I did end up playing was PlayStation games with my cousins. Well, one, I don't know. No, not my one of my cousins wasn't born yet. Just one cousin. Uh, yeah, he had a PlayStation for whatever reason. I never really played a Nintendo 64. My brother had one, and I played like Smash Brothers once or twice with him. But past that, I didn't really play Nintendo 64 or Nintendo in general. And so, but I played PlayStation. So my platformers were Spyro, Crash Bandicoot, and stuff like that.
Hmm.
Um, and we had a lot of fun with that. We played also Twisted Metal 3, I believe, was the first one we played, which I know a lot of Twisted Metal fans hate 3 and 4, but that was the one I grew up with, so that's the one I love.
Yeah.
And another big one is Space Jam. Do you know? Did you ever see that game, Space Jam?
No.
So it's a basketball game, a 3-on-3 basketball game. Do you know the movie?
Yeah.
So it's based off that movie, and you can play either the aliens or the good guys. And the good guys, especially Michael Jordan, Bugs Bunny, and I think Lola Bunny, were like all like overpowered, basically. And I would just shoot full court shots with Michael Jordan and make them. It's just like it was so bad. But they had also like mini games at halftime, and the game was for some odd reason addicting, but really stupid at the same time. Anyone who's played that game, I think, will remember it very fondly as well.
Yeah.
um, what else did I do? I did play Pokemon. That was my big Game Boy game. Played with my cousin as well. Bunch of early games is either me playing with my brother or dad, or playing with my cousin. I didn't
Nice.
really play by myself that much. And and yeah, I mean, I also played like Total Shogun War. That's like another grand strategy type game. And I didn't even play the actual battles. Like I didn't like playing the battles because I didn't understand them. I played just the board part where like you're building your army and you're building your nation and stuff like that. And I don't know. It's weird that I still find it really weird that as a 5, 6 year old, this was the type of games I was playing. Because now
Yeah.
I'm too impatient to learn these games. I feel like if I don't know them, I'm not gonna play them.
It's funny.
Oh, and the first person shooter I played was Team Fortress Classic. I still stand that's better than Team Fortress 2.
Everyone's entitled to their opinion.
Yeah. And
And
yeah, that's it
I
for me.
played a lot of the that same era of mods, like Counter Strike, Day of Defeat, Team Fortress Classic, and there was one more, but those were like the three really big mods.
Yeah.
And that was interesting, because I hadn't really seen like the whole modding thing. I feel kind of came in a big way at that time. That was the first time when like, oh wow, like this is a full game pretty much, you know.
Yeah.
That's actually fun to play that just free that adds on to the game I already bought. You know, obviously they're sold as separate games now, but that's sort of later on when that happened when Valve kind of bought them up and stuff. But
I mean,
it's,
ironically, I never really played Half-Life 2 until like way later on. And even then, I've never been in it.
you're talking about Half Life or Half Life Two?
Half-Life 2.
Okay, these are all
And
Half
I've
Life
never
One
played
era
Half-Life.
games.
I've actually never played Half-Life at all.
Yeah, it's not surprising. I mean, you probably just played the mods.
Yeah.
I think by the time you played them, they were probably standalone games too.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure it was. I played it because my brother played it, And actually, to an extent, that game is why part of why I like snipers, or like why my name is ChainedSniper. The actual like imagination when I thought of that name was for Halo 2, but my fascination for snipers came from Team Fortress Classic, which is honestly a big reason why I like it over Team Fortress 2 because they changed it a little bit, and it
Yeah.
bugs me. That's probably the major reason I like Team Fortress Classic over Team Fortress 2.
Oh, okay. For me, I didn't play that much classic, so for me it's the opposite. I'm used to sniper and Team Fortress 2.
Yeah, it's just I like letting go. I like it like how it's like a bow and arrow practically in Classic.
Oh, okay. Well, you could do the bow and arrow guy in Team Fortress 2.
Yeah, but it doesn't kill in one hit. Well, it can, but
Yeah, if you're really good.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's basically my first genre from PlayStation. Um, I mean, Xbox was until next generation, right?
Yeah.
And like I said, Nintendo 64. I do actually have a pretty cool thing with Super Smash Brothers. So sometimes my brother had to take care of me. He was already in high school, and he took me one time to his friend's house to play, and they ended up playing Super Smash Brothers, and I had no idea what I was doing. And for some odd reason, I picked Kirby. I think most little kids pick Kirby. and I was, they're beating up on me or whatever, and I ended up just doing. I was on Yoshi's Island, right down the middle. I did his Kirby Stone. I just remember
Hmm.
getting a triple kill, killing all three of them in one go, and I just like, okay, I'm done. Like I think I was like, I'm done playing. I'm happy.
That's all you needed.
Yeah, I was like, I'm done playing. But it's weird. Like, so I kept playing video games, and my brother stopped. He stopped around Nintendo 64. He played some PC games, like I was talking about, but past that, he really didn't keep playing. But and so me and my cousin played Smash Brothers. We played Super Smash Bros. Or Melee, and then we played Brawl. We got better at it. He was getting older. He stopped playing video games. I kept playing video games, and I still could not beat him on Nintendo 64. Like he's just really good at that game for whatever reason.
That's funny.
And
It's
yeah,
what he has the most time with.
I guess. And yeah, that's it for me.
All right, what are we up to? Should I do my N64 stuff or?
Yeah.
Okay, so for me, same game, Super Smash Brothers was probably one of my favorites. So I have three brothers, so it was a perfect game. All four of us could play it. Because like before that, like the coolest thing about the N64 was that it supported four players. That's the reason we got it over the PS2. Because like I think technically you could get like an expansion thing to get four players, but
Wait,
then not that
PS2.
many PS2. You
You
know,
mean
there's two controller ports by default.
I know, but you mean PS1 or PS2?
Oh, sorry, PS1.
Okay.
Same as that. Like that, only
I
two
mean,
player
PlayStation
ports,
2
right?
only had two people too, but
Yeah. Sorry, yeah, PS1. Um, so we preferred N64 because we could all play Mario Kart, we could all play Smash Bros. That's kind of why we went that route. So Smash Bros was just a lot of fun. We loved it because all of us could play, and because it was sort of just random craziness, it wasn't like one of us just destroyed the other. It was fun for all of us. You know what I mean?
yeah,
Whereas like some games, I mean, even though it's a fighting game, it's not a it's not as competitive as a true fighting game. Um,
it is now.
it's hmm?
It is now.
Yeah, it is now, but then on the N64, it was very much just you could just button mash, and I mean you could. There are people who could whip you on it, obviously, but when it's just the four of us boys as kids, it was a perfect game for just kind of. It was easy to play,
It was easy to
easy
play.
to pick
Yeah,
up, and just have fun with.
anyone can knock out of the ring if they can do side A or up A.
Exactly. Um, and Army Men Sarge's Heroes, which Ryan had the pleasure of playing one time at my house. Or not the select part.
Fantastic.
Yeah, it's a fantastic game. Even I hate it now, but at the time, it was one of the first ones where we could play four players and kind of just shoot each other and have big environments to fight in. So we had a lot of fun back in the day, but like it is so hard to control that game properly. For whatever reason, we never really got into the whole GoldenEye thing. I know everyone thinks it's like the best game of all time because they played it in high school and at their
Overrated.
college dorm or whatever. But I didn't think it was that great of a game personally, but neither is Hard Heroes. I'm not saying that one's better at all.
Totally much better.
Like if I was playing a first person shooter, I was playing on a PC. Because before Halo, console FPSs sucked. I'm sorry. Like
Yeah.
GoldenEye was not like it was great because you could kind of play a first person shooter on a console. You know what I mean? But Halo was the first game where it's like, oh, this could actually work if you make the controller correct for it. You know what I mean? um, we have Mario Kart and Super Mario 64, all great games, but Banjo Tooie, I remember, was one of the first games that I laughed a lot, and it was one of the first ones like it was consistently funny as you played through the story. It was a platformer like Mario 64, except it just kind of took everything to the next level. It was one of the best looking N64 games in my opinion. Lots of really large environments to explore, but then all of the characters and stuff were just real goofy and funny. And that was one of the first games I remember being funny like that. Because you could start to have you could have voice samples and different things that kind of add personality to it.
Yeah.
And naturally, they wanted to do Conker's Bad Fur Day and stuff like that later on. With PS2, are you moving to PS2 now, or?
Yeah, I think so.
I
I
didn't
mean,
own one. Like we didn't have one, so we didn't really. Because we got a GameCube, so I'll talk mostly about GameCube. Like PS2, like I would play, some random games when I would go to a friend's house, but I don't really have that many memories. Like I own one now, and some games I've gone back and played, but that's not really fair. It'd be like, oh, I have these memories of these PS2 games that I played last year. So I don't really have like childhood or teen memories of the PS2 at all. What about you?
PlayStation 2. So I did end up owning all three consoles: the Xbox, PlayStation 2, and GameCube. Uh, PlayStation 2 had one of the, I think, is it the most like highest selling console or something like that?
Yeah.
Yeah, so like it had bunch of games. It was probably everyone's almost unanimous favorite, especially since Xbox came out after. It was like not even really part of the same generation almost. But
Yeah.
I could not tell you what my favorite game was on that console. I can't even tell you what games I really played on it. Like the games I remember all PlayStation 1, like the Crash and Twisted Metal and stuff like that.
Hmm.
One game I do remember doing was Final Fantasy 11, which, if you guys know about that, is the online MMO or massively multiplayer online, right? That's what it's called.
Yeah.
It's the version that's not like Final. It's not an RPG, and that was a pain in the butt from what I remember to do. Because so there's no keyboard, so we had to buy a keyboard or something like that.
Oh wow.
We also it was like $10 a month,
Didn't it
something.
require a hard drive too?
I don't remember. It required a bunch of things, and I ended up playing it for like 2 months and quitting. And the funny thing is I have like I even bought the Brady guide or whatever, one of those guides, and I
Hmm.
really liked what was in it, and it looked cool. I always liked Final Fantasy lore. Those were also I played 8 and 9 also on PlayStation 1, by the way. I guess Final Fantasy 10 is a big one on PlayStation 2. I rented that from Blockbuster, I'm pretty sure. Um, but yeah, like other than like a Final Fantasy game, I can't think of many PlayStation 2 games. Like
Yeah.
I recently boxed my games, and the ones I had left were just a bunch of anime games, which I bought like in a 4 pack at Costco or probably
Nice.
Price Club at the time. And I don't remember any games on it. Like I still have my PS2 somewhere. I like just unhooked to nothing, and yeah, that's really all I have for PS2.
Nice.
Good console, but don't remember anything about it.
What about Killzone?
Is that on PlayStation 2?
Yeah.
No,
It was
it
not
was
a very
great.
good game. It was not a good game at all. Like what was funny is like we had an Xbox, we got a GameCube at launch, and then we got the Xbox. Like when did Halo 4 come out? I mean Halo 4, Halo 2.
I was about to say, I think last year.
I
2003 or four,
I
four.
think we
2004.
bought it maybe like 6 months or something before Halo 2 came out. So we had both of them eventually, but we had GameCube most early on. But it was funny. His friend when this was after Halo came out and everything. He was talking about how Killzone was way better than Halo, and I wasn't even a huge Halo fan. Like I still like it. It's like, but it's not like my favorite. But he was like, "Oh yeah, Killzone's so much better than Halo." And I played it with him for a while. I'm like, dude, seriously? Halo's not even my favorite game, but the Halo is way better in this game. I'm sorry. uh, like, have you played Killzone, the first
No,
one?
I haven't
Okay,
played any of them.
yeah, it's a very mediocre shooter, but yeah. So GameCube we had first,
Halo
and I
killer.
remember, hmm?
It's the Halo killer.
Yeah, exactly. My gosh, I hate that term. Whenever like you just take the game and put killer at the end, it's like, yeah,
Although
whatever.
that, if you want to like find out what's an influential game, if it has a clone or has a killer, it's an influential game.
Yeah,
That's what I've
yeah, exactly.
realized.
Yes. Well, and the idea that if someone comes out with another good game that's similar, that is going to kill the other game is such a stupid concept because they rarely do. They can usually both exist. You know what I mean?
Especially when they're on different consoles.
Yeah, exactly. It's yeah. I think it's a very silly. It's a news. It's a journalism thing to grab people's attention.
Yeah.
But so GameCube. What's funny is we usually before this got our consoles like a year or two afterwards. You know, once the prices dropped, then our grandma would get them, cheaper for us. But GameCube, we were really shocked that we got it like when it came out. We were like blown away. It was the coolest thing ever because like, whoa, we never get new consoles. What is this? um, so we got the GameCube, and I remember we got. I think Animal Crossing was launch, maybe not. But I remember playing Animal Crossing and Pikmin early on. It was like the two games we played early on. I didn't really like Mario Sunshine.
I love that
I don't
game.
know. Like I know a
No,
lot of people like it, and I don't think it's a bad game. I don't know. I wasn't. I guess I was sort of tired of platformers by that point because I'd played so much of them on the N64. I kind of wanted something different. So like, and Super Smash Bros. Melee, that's just more Smash Bros. Is more fun. We played that game so much.
I think Super Mario Sunshine is like the only Mario platform I really played.
Oh,
Now that I
really?
think about it, I mean,
That's
I
funny. That's
played.
like the most different one too.
Yeah, well, I think I played the original Super Mario Brothers on the Game Boy or something once, but
Yeah.
other than that, like I didn't play 64. I didn't play. Well, I did play some of three, like at a cousin's house or something,
hmm
but that was the only one I owned and actually played myself.
hmm And one of the interesting things about GameCube was I never really played horror games, but Resident Evil 4 just got so many like great reviews and Game of the Year everything when it came out. So I eventually got that and really liked it and actually finished it. Um, and it's like I went back and played it recently. Like it's for the PS3. It's just like an up-resed version of it. It's not they didn't work very hard to make it look nicer, but at least it's widescreen and whatever. But it's still I still found it interesting. It's still creepy and weird. Um,
Resident Evil
I
4.
yeah, Resident Evil 4 because I've tried other Resident Evil games. I didn't like any of them. It's the only one that I like playing. Because it gets the tone right. And the story is just bizarre and interesting. Whereas the other ones are just bizarre and like just kind of don't make sense. Whereas this one, I felt like I at least followed its weird story and understood what was going on. Whereas some of the games, it's like, wait, what is going on now? um, I think it's because the story was fairly simple. Like there were twists in it, but it was easy to follow what was going on. But yeah, really haven't played that many horror games. As long as you don't count like Left 4 Dead, I wouldn't call that a Mystic Heroes. Oh no, is that game you always show me with like the four-player like um the wizards and stuff fighting?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I also had a. Are you done with the GameCube? Do you have anything else?
Yeah, well, I guess I just quickly mentioned Pikmin. I just remember that game being it was so weird and different than anything else I'd ever played. Because, I mean, it's similar to an RTS or some kind of strategy game in some ways, but it was just so weird. Like, the world it created was so creative and bizarre. I remember liking that a lot at the time.
Yeah.
That's kind of why I got a Wii U, so I can play Pikmin 3
Today, you literally bought it today.
today on eBay. Totally not a, a compulsive buy at all. Not at all.
Should have bought Saints Row 4 instead.
Oh my gosh.
All right, would have played it with me. So yeah, I had a GameCube as well. I did play like Melee. I did play some of Animal Crossing. The thing I remember of Animal Crossing is our we had an Odyssey van which had like one of those TVs, one of the early ones. We still have this van actually too, and we ended up buying a like a I don't know what they're called, but it's basically so you can plug in like a console into it, and it was kind of cool. Like it's like oh, so I can play my GameCube instead of my Game Boy on long trips. And I remember one time I don't know I don't even think we're going very far, but I think we rented Animal Crossing or something like that, and I was playing it, and I just started to feel nauseous, which I had never really had that problem because, like you're saying, if you're playing Game Boy, you're probably really concentrating because it's dark, and you can't really see it. You have to have it close. It's much smaller. Your hands are moving a lot more, and so when I started playing, I was like, oh, I guess I can't play this game on this, and it's a small TV too, so it's like that's all I remember of Animal Crossing. I don't know if I ever got far on it. I probably was like turned off by it because I got car sick playing it.
That'd be pretty funny if you hook it up now and immediately you just like throw up after playing it, even in your house.
So I don't eat kettle corn either because I had kettle corn at a cousin's house and I threw up on the way back to my house.
Nice. Yeah, it
Um,
is. It is easy to associate things. If you
yeah,
have a bad experience with it, then you automatically like your brain will be like, no, don't do that. Remember last time?
yeah. I think it's more of for Animal Crossing at least. I think it was just I rented it and I just was done playing it. Like it didn't keep me as much, which is weird because like I was saying, I like Sims. I like, I've figured out that I like management games. So Animal Crossing is kind of under that umbrella, but I just never clicked with me for whatever reason. I did. I said I played Melee. Did I say that?
I don't think so.
Oh well, I did play Super Smash Bros. Melee as well. I've played basically that has been my main reason for playing Nintendo or getting Nintendo consoles is for Smash Brothers. Uh, like like I said, I've never been a Mario guy. I did play, going back to the 64. I did play Mario Kart quite a bit. I remember, and I played some Mario Party, but I never really played like the traditional Mario games or even Zelda, another big one, right?
Hmm.
But yeah, that's so the big game for me on GameCube actually was Mystic Heroes, like Corey said. And it's actually kind of for a similar reason he played a bunch of his games. Mystic Heroes was a 4-player game, and it was co-op, and so it was like magic and swords and stuff like that, and that's kind of under my favorite type of game. And I played with my cousins a lot, and I don't know for some it's like a Dynasty Warriors if you've never played that. It's like a kids version almost of it, and it's just really fun. And like to this day, I think like if me and my cousins ever get together again for a nostalgia day, which we plan on doing, we'll probably end up playing that game. And I still think it's a game that holds up decently. Actually, it's not a great game or anything, but it wasn't a great game when it came out either. I don't even know how I got that game though. Like I legitimately have no idea. It probably was just one of those games that someone bought for me for like my birthday or something.
Yeah, exactly.
I was probably like, I like swords and magic. And it's, okay, go to Target. My son likes swords and magic. Give me a video game, and it worked. So
Nice.
that's my GameCube stories. I don't think there's really much other games I could think of. Like I said, I played Mario Sunshine. Yeah, I looked at my covers that of old games I have. I had like Dragon Ball Z,
Hmm.
Budokai. That's a game.
That is a game. You're correct.
That's basically it for GameCube. My big console this generation was Xbox.
Yeah.
Did you
Um,
go ahead?
what were you gonna say?
Do you have any Xbox stories or
Sure.
go ahead?
For me, the best ones were um, getting 16 people together for a Halo 2 LAN party. And Halo 1, we did it with Halo 2 the most. It's so much fun to get 16 people like into space with tables and well, I guess that was tables we do with the laptops for like LAN party, but like doing the LAN stuff with all the Xboxes hooked up to TVs, like that was just really fun. To have a whole bunch of people over 16 people and all the TVs and pizza and Mountain Dew, of course. um,
Way to promote the gamer stereotype there.
exactly. Well, you have to. It's part of the deal. But I just remember like every birthday party. That's that's pretty much what we do. We'd alternate between like doing that and then going camping. So like we kind of did both. There was this one campground within our city up in the mountains, so we would like go up there and camp, and so it was a pretty cool campground up there. Then because like what we do is like our my brothers and I birthdays just kind of spread out through the year. So we'd be like, okay, I'll do mine as a land party, and then we'll do yours a camping trip or whatever. So we'd kind of alternate. So it's a lot of fun
I
during the
see.
teen years.
Anything else?
That's the biggest one. What was the? Oh my gosh, I have aggravating memories or whatever you want to call it of Kung Fu Chaos. Have you heard of that?
No.
It's like a really bad Smash Bros. Ripoff. Um,
Don't know how to spell chaos.
hmm?
I don't know how to spell chaos.
um, what was I gonna say? My brother really liked it, and it's just like I don't know how to describe it. Just the controls are bad. The visuals are bad. Just everything about it. But he loved playing it, so I would just play it and sit there and just like, oh, this game's so bad. Why do you want to play it? Because we were kind of trying to find like a Smash Brothers for Xbox for whatever reason. So that was one that we tried, but that one's not. It's not very good. I'm trying to remember. Like I've played so many games that it's like hard to remember everything. Remember?
Yeah.
Oh, one of the other big ones actually was Time Splitters. Duh. We played a lot of Time Splitters 2 and 3 on Xbox. And those games are fun just because there's so many crazy modes. Um, and it was just
Map
very simple to
editor.
play. Map editor. But for whatever reason, we didn't use the map editor in that. I think it's because it was so restrictive. But in Far Cry Instincts, I think it was called for Xbox, it had the map editor where you could, fully you could set the exact level of the mountains and make islands and all that kind of stuff on the console. So we used to build maps and play with each other on them. Like I had a lot of fun building the maps on that. I remember having a lot of fun with that. Do you have? What about your Xbox memories?
So I have a lot of Xbox memories. Hang on, I gotta write them all down before I forget. So the big one was Halo, of course. I mean, most people that know me will call me a Halo guy for whatever reason, because I liked Halo. I guess that makes me a Halo guy. But whatever. So yeah, I didn't really ever play 16 man. I think I did end up linking. I think I ended up linking the two Xboxes once to get 8 people on a LAN play, which was kind of fun. I don't even remember it that well. I just remember it happening, but I can't remember like actually playing it. And I think this was at a time where I was the one that owned Halo 2 among my cousins, two of my cousins. When I talk about cousins, I talk about one person specifically, generally 1 to 2 people. And so I got kind of good at Halo 2 compared to most of him and his friends even. And because Halo 2 was kind of the big time when Xbox Live was big, and this is when I was playing it a lot, and that's actually also where my gamer tag ChainedSniper came from, because I imagined Master Chief basically chained down in the back of blood gulch or coagulation, shooting down enemies coming at him, and for whatever reason it's stuck. It's always a name that's never used. I like the word chained. I don't like sniper in it anymore since I don't always play first person shooters, but it's a name that has stuck with me. It's never taken on anything, and it's always helped. And yeah. But other than Halo 2, there's a bunch of games I started playing. I played my first racing game, and that was Project Gotham Racing. I don't know if I played the first or second one. I think I played up to three. I played a bunch of that with my family. Actually, we all enjoyed that. My dad, and my brother would always try to pick the fastest cars, while my mom would always stick to the very like medium speed one, but can turn really well, and she'd end up winning like half the time because we're crashing all the time.
I was about to say, yeah, it's my brothers and I would do, just crashing constantly because you'd try to go too fast.
Yeah, and I actually think it's kind of funny how that works out. My brother got pretty good at the game, but for me personally, I got decent. I ended up playing my dad once. I think this is a while after it came out. I ended up using the Mini Cooper or something like that, one of the very first cars that are terrible, and he used one of the fastest cars, and I ended up almost beating him, even though there was like a long straightaway. And I think I'm no, yeah, he ended up beating me. I think right at the end, and it was kind of funny. But that was my Project Gotham Racing. I never really got into racing games past that. For whatever reason, that game stuck with us, at least my family. But past that, never really played much. Another one was Cell Damage. You have to look this one up. I think it's only one L, but I wrote two on mine. This game was basically Twisted Metal for the Xbox. I guess it's also on the other ones, but we got it for the Xbox. And it was just super wacky. Like even way like Twisted Metal was kind of like it. I mean, cars, connecting rocket launchers to themselves and stuff is kind of wacky in general. But this one where they had like chainsaws as one of their weapons. They had like punching gloves and stuff like that. So it was like it Twisted Metal kind of went the dark route with the game, while Cell Damage just went crazy. It was a kind of a fun game. I don't remember a lot of it anymore, but it was one of those games I still played with my cousins a lot. I
It's like cell shaded.
think so. I don't remember.
I'm looking at pictures of it. It looks cell shaded to me.
I don't even know if I knew what cell shaded was back then. I didn't even know until like Borderlands 1.
Oh, okay.
um, Another one was so when I got Halo 1, I actually have a picture of it during Christmas. I got Halo 1. I also got another game called Dead or Alive 3, the third one. And that's kind of the first time I got into fighting games. And I never really knew. I knew there was a lot of good people in it. I know that people got really good at fighting games, but I never knew to the extent of how good they were. And I'll probably talk about it a little bit later. But Dead or Alive was a game that me and my cousins also tried getting good at. We did play some Tekken Tag Tournament 2 or 2, not 2. 2 just came out like 2 years ago. Tekken Tag Tournament 1 for the PlayStation 2. I guess that's a PlayStation 2 game I played. My cousin kind of got good at that, but I ended up playing Dead or Alive since I didn't have that game on mine. And actually, Dead or Alive has a couple of the characters that to this day are still my favorite because it has ninjas and I love ninjas. Yeah, that's for that. And then Ninja Gaiden is another one. If you guys know what that is, that's I never played the NES version, which is supposed to be super hard as well, but I played the Xbox version, which I think did a very good job of simulating the difficulty, but still was kind of fair. What I liked about the game so much was that it was a game that you felt in complete control, and if you lost, it's because the enemies were just kind of like smarter, or you messed up. Like that's one of my biggest things. Like with old games, I get annoyed when it's like, well, I just pressed up once and I didn't have really another. Like I just screwed up barely a little bit like that, and I just got screwed because of that. Or like the controls were not participating with what I was doing. With
Hmm.
Ninja Gaiden, you had so much mobility options. You had so many different ways to approach a battle that it felt like I felt like in control. I felt like if I messed up, it was just me messing up, and I needed to get better.
Yeah.
There was one boss though on chapter 7. I don't remember her name, but I could never beat her. I never beat the game because of her. Me and my cousin would switch off because our older cousin was the one that showed it to us. Very bloody game, by the way, showing to show kids. But
Yeah.
so we ended up watching. It's like, oh, that's really cool. We like ninjas as well. Um, and so we started playing it. He let us play on his game or something like that, and I never ended up beating it, or we never ended up beating it because we got stuck at that one character. And yeah. And my last one is actually a fun story of Jade Empire. Jade Empire, if you don't know it, it's made from BioWare, who made like Knights of the Old Republic and Mass Effect, which I'm sure we'll talk about soon. But Jade Empire, I don't even know why I specifically picked this game, but basically, back then, my family, my mom's side of the family, her sisters got together, and all their family got together, and they liked playing poker. And so since me and my cousins were just kids, we never really played it or anything like that. But one of our older cousins, he entered a real live or like a money tournament, and he wanted to play with the family, so he's like, hey Ryan, since I knew how to play some poker, he's like, play this for me. And I'm just like, and I went in going like, is this real money? He's like, yeah, don't worry though. And just like, you're putting me, who's like, I don't know how old I was at that time, probably like 12, 13 years old, I think. And, and it's like, yeah, just play this game. And then I ended up going all in or something like that in the beginning and winning a bunch of money. And I just stayed up there until I got knocked out. Like, this was like 1,000 man tournament, and I got up to like to top 100, I think.
Oh wow.
And it's like a 13-year-old. There was no money involved, but he was thankful for it. So he was like, here, Ryan, since you helped me out here, I'll buy you whatever. And I think it won like a game of the year or something like that. And I heard it was a good game, so I ended up getting it. And now Jade Empire is one of my favorite games of all time.
Nice.
And so I love that story because it's like it's weird circumstances, but a lot of good came out of it. So it was fun.
Yeah, that's cool.
And I was also still playing StarCraft at this time. I just had to mention that. Yeah, so I mean, like I said, Xbox was definitely probably my biggest time because I wasn't quite getting a bunch of games, but I got a few games obviously, but I played a bunch of them, and I didn't, I wasn't trying to find the best games. I just whatever game I got, I played, and yeah,
Yeah, when you're a kid, you just play whatever game you have. You don't read reviews.
yeah,
You
exactly,
don't like look at Metacritic to see what his score is at.
yeah. Oh, there was actually one game. Did you ever play Fusion Frenzy?
No, I always heard
That
about it.
that was a fun game. It was
Yeah,
actually, I think, was it like a Halo 2 demo or something? I don't know
yeah, I
how.
think so.
It was part of like Halo 2, and one of the games they had was just like it was probably the best mini game. It's just it's like Mario Party basically. And there's one mini game though that they put it on there, and they only had like 10 of like 100 games or whatever, and you just kept playing it, and that was like the most fun game because it's kind of intense, but it's like just two buttons. And then you end up buying the whole game, and you kind of go, "Oh, I kind of like the game that was only in the demo."
Exactly, but the best part in the demo.
Yeah, but it was still a fun game overall.
Nice.
Second one, not as good.
Yeah.
I don't know if there was a third one. I hope there wasn't.
Maybe it was better.
Maybe. So yeah, that's my. At this time too, if you notice, like I stopped playing PC games other than StarCraft, and some I kept with StarCraft and Command and Conquer, but other than that, like I didn't really play. Like I didn't do Steam until, well, I mean, Steam was later on, but I didn't really pick up new games or anything like that.
Hmm.
This is when I switched my console years when I got older, which makes complete sense. But yeah, that's my Xbox generation story.
Cool.
Do you have anything else to say for this generation?
I think that's pretty much it.
Shall we move on to current generation?
Sure.
You want to start or me?
You start.
Okay, so this generation is 360 until now. Um, I do have all the consoles now, finally, after I got the PS3 just this year, I think. Uh, so this was a generation where I kind of stopped just getting a game and playing a crap ton of it. Is like when I actually kind of got more noticeable of what games were, how good they were, and stuff like that. And this is kind of where I broadened my gaming library. So I don't really have too many specific games that I can kind of say like, oh, I have so many fond memories of this. The biggest one I can remember, or two of them, was my Halo 3 days. So I played a lot of Halo 3. I had a bunch of friends who played it, and I was getting pretty good at it. I got my brother into it. I actually ended up buying him a Xbox 360 to play with him, and it was a lot of fun. He wasn't the greatest at Halo 3. This is kind of his return to video games after a long time, and yeah, so it was kind of fun playing with him. But then he had a friend who also had a 360, and we played with him sometimes. And he convinced him, and he basically got him addicted to Call of Duty 4 Modern Warfare 1.
Oh,
And
just
so
kidding.
I no, I was literally I. It took me a while for me to change. Like I liked playing Call of Duty 4, but it was I was used to Halo. That was my first person shooter for the longest time. I was never I didn't play Battlefield. I didn't play I don't know the other ones like Ghost Recon or whatever. My type was not the military shooter. It was the kind of like jumping around and having a full life, stuff like that. So when I switched to it, of course, I also wasn't as good, right?
Yeah.
One of my favorite things to do was, in Halo 3, you can have a guest play with you. And instead of having my brother play the guest on my account, I played my own guest. And when you see a guest on Halo 3, if you ever played Halo a lot online, you'd go, "Oh, that guy's gonna suck." And
Yeah.
then the guest is like the one doing the best. Is like, why? Why is it like this? But what I figured out is the third guest or the second guest was always the worst. If you had
Yeah.
a second guest, like no, because it's like you're not gonna have your best player be the second guest. You'll either have them be the main character or the first guest. But yeah, that was always fun. But then, so after Call of Duty, my brother kept with Call of Duty. He didn't really. I don't. I think actually, I don't even know if he bought Halo Reach. I think he just stayed with Call of Duty all the way until this most recent time. Then he got into Halo 4, luckily, but then we stopped playing that. So then we stopped playing Halo in general. I'm back to PC gaming actually. And the last major game, I would say is Mass Effect. I know you wanted to talk about Mass Effect.
Yeah. Mass Effect was. I remember when I first saw a trailer for it. It was before believe they even announced that it was for 360. They were just like, I knew them as the Knights of the Old Republic people. Because they did that, and then they did Jade Empire. And Jade Empire, I wanted to play, but it's another one that I didn't get around to playing until recently when Ryan egged me on to play it, and I really liked it. But I remember seeing Mass Effect and just being like, wow, the the characters, even aliens, just look so lifelike in the
Yeah,
way their faces and animate and everything. When I finally came out and played it, yeah, I was very impressed with its storytelling ability and the choices you'd make. It was one of the first games where I felt like, oh wow, okay, the storytelling is going to become even better in video games. Like I can see like where it's going now. Whereas for a while it was very like going back and playing Dreamfall now. Dreamfall was a game that was known for being a very good story game. So that's where we've come from. Dreamfall, Longest Journey to Mass Effect. Huge, enormous difference in its ability to effectively tell a story that's engaging and emotional and exciting, everything you'd want it to be.
yeah.
Then Mass Effect 2, obviously just going farther with that. And then Mass Effect 3, all I've touched is the multiplayer, so I wouldn't know about the single player. But the multiplayer is fun.
um, yeah, with Mass Effect 1, I think one of the coolest things, and actually Saints Row, in my opinion, does this pretty well too, is that technically you can create your own character. Granted, in Mass Effect, it's only male or female,
Yeah.
but it's amazing. Like they have so many different lines. Like not only they have cutscenes, but then of course they have their individual lines that not everyone's gonna see in one playthrough, right? And so it's like not only did they got one voice actor, they had to get two people to do that, and both of them just are such good voice actors. And like in general, that's I think one of the reasons Mass Effect is so good is the characters are so good, but the voice actors have made them so believable. Like when
Yeah.
both like one of the hardest things I played mostly a female Shepard. I played a male one too. I played Mass Effect 1 through 3 like 3 times or something. Four no like 6 times or something crazy.
Jeez.
Um, I don't know how many times. Uh, but like there's one part I think Mass Effect 2 where they stand like they're like, oh, captain, do you want to give a or commander, do you want to give a speech to the crew? And then you can kind of pick the speech. And one of the hard things to me, like whether this is just stereotype or whatever, it's hard to view kind of like a female as that, or it's easier to kind of go behind a male voice in terms of like being a captain. Like it's very hard for women because like women's guys' voices are much deeper. They're kind of like more solid, more sturdy, or whatever. And females, but the female shepherd, I don't know the voice actress. I can't remember her name, Jennifer Hale or something like that.
Hmm.
She, I played a female, and she just does a really good job of it. And both shepherds just like you feel like you're in command of this ship. You feel like a hero. You feel all these kind of things that not many other games before did, in my opinion. And yeah, Mass Effect's just such a good game.
I agree. Yeah, I never really went back and played through again. So I didn't play as a female shepherd or anything.
Yeah, I think my first playthrough was with a male, but then when I finally understood the game and I knew that I was gonna bring him over, I wanted to try a female, and female just happened to be like. I think what ended up happening was I wanted to beat all the main or the side missions even, and it just happened to be a renegade female shepherd, which is
Hmm.
not my first pick, but that's just kind of how it ended up happening.
Nice.
But yeah, I mean, other than that, there's a bunch of other things that happened that's not game specific. Do you have any other specific games that you want to talk about?
Are we just talking consoles right now, or what?
No, just overall.
Okay. Um.
I mean, I'm talking about just video games though, not events.
Yeah. So, uh, Uncharted 2 um, was a really good one. It There's just so much attention to detail, even in the way, well, mostly in animation. Just like if he's walking down a hallway, he'll kind of, put his hand, he'll kind of touch the wall as he goes along. It doesn't sound like a big deal, but like all of those little touches put together just makes for a really good game. That like they really put a lot of thought and energy into the games, and it really makes a really interesting overall experience that kind of pulls you into that world. You feel like you're Indiana Jones. I mean, that's basically what Uncharted is. It's just a more modern Indiana Jones or whatever you want to call it, um, or a male Tomb Raider, whatever you want to call it. Although, I mean, the new Tomb Raider kind of copied Uncharted, for being honest here, but but Uncharted built off of Tomb Raider's legacy, but kind of updated it and brought it, to modern console standards, and then new Tomb Raider. I haven't played too much of it yet, but the new Tomb Raider seems really good too. Trying to think of like recent games. The Walking Dead was another game that was obviously storytelling. Um, it was obviously just a very emotional game. Mostly, yeah, it's more like an interactive, just an interactive story, whatever you call it.
It's like
It's
Phoenix
not
Wright.
like, hmm?
It's like Phoenix Wright.
Yeah, I mean, you interact more than Phoenix, right? Even in some way, I mean, because you do walk around the environment occasionally or something. So I mean, there is technically a little more interacting with the world. But yeah, I mean, basically, you're making choices and deciding things, and then doing really simple adventure puzzles. So, but yeah, it was just the story was just so good. The writing was so solid that that's what made that game so compelling. The most recently, Bioshock Infinite. I feel like Half-Life 2 sort of started the trend of kind of first-person shooters used to be so you're like a loner, you're by yourself, and you're taking on the entire universe by yourself. Like Halo would have you kind of with your squad for a little bit, but then most of the game you'd wander off and then just fight bad guys or whatever.
It's because they
But
die
well, yeah. But
or you
so
kill
like
them.
Half-Life 2, the first one, you interact with some characters and Alex is there a little bit. But then in episode 2 was when they had Alex with you for like a pretty good chunk of the game. Um, that was one of the first games where it's like, okay, the game is less boring because she's there to kind of talk about things that are going on. That was sort of like the step forward. And then Bioshock Infinite was your guy talks and talks to her. They talk back and forth about what's going on. So it makes things less dull when you're kind of moving from point to point between the battle. Things like that. I feel like that was a really good advancement that I feel like we'll see a lot of other people do it. That's typically what happens when there's an advancement. Then everyone else is like, "Oh, that's a really good idea." So it's good for everyone. You know what I mean?
I mean,
Whenever we get a change like that.
it was kind of the. I mean, I don't know if I don't think Bioshock Infinite was the first one to do it, but like Half Life Two had your main character. He was a Gordon Freeman was a blank slate basically, right? He
What?
didn't talk,
Oh,
right?
blank slate.
Yeah,
Yes.
blank slate. Like because he was supposed to be you, right? So I kind of
Yeah.
so it didn't feel, like. But then I think people realize it's like why don't we just actually tell a story with the main character? You know what I mean?
Exactly.
Like instead of making you feel like you're the character, why don't we just make you feel like you're a part of the adventure? Like Uncharted, like you mentioned Uncharted. That I think that's a great game. Like Nathan Drake could have easily been another. just doesn't talk very much, but now he's the main guy. He's what everyone wants to like be the friend or whatever, or be. I don't know how to describe it, but you know, it gave the main characters an actual name. Like like you were saying with Bioshock Infinite, like it's right in that Decker, I forgot his name. Was it Decker?
Uh,
Whatever.
may make me. Yeah.
The main character. It's weird because it's a first person shooter. You barely see his face, maybe a couple times, I think, and but he actually was talking. And so like you're right. It's kind of weird. It's like it was like a now that I think about it, it's kind of like a Half-Life 2, but where Gordon Freeman was talking and actually communicating, and it makes it less awkward,
Yeah.
I would say. And yeah, it's the that was probably my favorite part of that game, to be honest. Was just like the conversations between him and Elizabeth and their relationship and stuff like that.
It's Booker DeWitt.
DeWitt. Okay. I mixed them up. Deckers are from Saints Row 3.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I mean that's definitely its strength. And come think of it, Uncharted 2, you spend the majority of the games with someone else,
Yeah.
whether it's someone you're working with that crosses you later, or one of the girls, or Sully. There's typically someone with you for
Mike
large chunks of the
Wazowski.
game. What?
Nothing.
What?
Do you have
Um,
any other games specifically for this generation?
there are so many games, but
Yeah, but
I'm not thinking of.
that's kind of the point though. Was like there are so many games now that we've tried and played, and probably in general, just more games like that are coming out, right? Like that are like Tomb Raider is a game that like is probably similar to an Uncharted, but games have just evolved so much that it's kind of just an above average game. And
Yeah,
granted, it wasn't the first to do it, so that's always a big negative. But
yeah. Um, Sid Meier's Civilization 5. It's a big one for me. It's probably one of my favorite strategy games. I've sunk it pretty good. I spent 40 hours in that game, so it must mean that I like it pretty well.
or you left it on
um,
for the trading cards.
no, I didn't even know there were trading cards for this game.
There is now.
I've seriously, yeah, I noticed that as I was playing it the other day. But no, that game I do play it a lot. I mean, I have played it a lot. It's the kind of game that you can spend a whole day playing it and not realize it, kind of thing. I did that one day when I was off work. um, yeah, I yeah, these are all the things that are really sticking out to me. Obviously, there's just a million different games we've both played. I'm trying to think. I'm sure there's so many little things, memories that I'm missing, but it's like you can't remember all of it.
Minecraft is a big game.
Minecraft. Yeah, what's funny is I actually found that from there's this guy who used to do this show about indie games, sort of before, like when indie games were really just getting started. Like now it's like indie games they're not mainstream now, but they're like more people know what that is. You know what I mean?
I always say that nowadays you have AAA games, then you have indie games. Indie games are kind of like the double A, single A titles. I would say now.
Yeah, exactly. But this was kind of before that almost, because like this was Minecraft originally came out in like 2009 or something. The beta.
It was
Um,
out with the alpha.
or alpha or yeah, whatever it was. I got it pretty early on, and before like I was the first one I felt like in my group that knew about it. Like I would tell people about Minecraft, and they're like, "What is Minecraft?" And now just like everyone knows it. Like Minecraft's insanely popular. What's funny when I played it, I wasn't sitting there thinking, "Oh man, this is gonna become like the most popular game ever." You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I just thought, "Oh, this is a weird little thing." And that was it. And then I didn't play it for quite a while, and then I noticed other people talking about it and getting it, and then I was like, oh really? Like, all right, let's set up like a multiplayer server, and then I started doing multiplayer, but I'd kind of forgotten about it because I didn't think it was going to be like this huge deal. And for me, it was fun. It was interesting idea, like the whole surviving at first. But I feel like the way that game shines is when you get a whole bunch of people on a server and you're all like building a town together. Like that kind of thing is a lot of fun. and
Yeah.
like you leave the server up all the time. That's what made the game really fun for me. So it was probably like 2 years after it came out when I really actually started playing it, um, like a lot. I'm curious, when was the beta? Like, it officially came out in 2011, like the official release.
Was it that long
I don't
ago?
know. That's what it says.
That's crazy.
PC, Mac, and Linux, November 2011.
Seems like it was at most last year.
Yeah.
So I want to kind of segue or whatever from kind of Minecraft. So, like I said, I didn't. I would say that this generation was kind of the generation where instead of just playing games, I went to like doing everything else about games, like watching them, learning about them, reading about them, reviewing them, all this kind of stuff. And Minecraft was definitely one of the ones that helped. Minecraft was severely helped by YouTube gamers.
Oh
Pe-
yeah.
Put people that up, recorded the gameplay and put it up. And of course, YouTube was also, and that was spiked up from Modern Warfare 2. That's definitely what spiked up that whole genre or whatever you want to call it of gaming. And now I'm putting up my own YouTube videos, right? And I'm watching people constantly every day. And so that's one of the things I did. I also learned about Giant Bomb. Their podcast was probably the first like gaming site podcast that that's how I learned more and more about video games, right? Because I don't want to
Hmm.
read, I want to just listen to things. And so I expanded my knowledge on video games through that. That's also when I learned about professional StarCraft and professional gaming in general, where people, like I always kind of knew that there were people that brought gaming to its highest level, but I was never quite sure like how specific it was. I don't know if it was just people that were just better than me, or if there was actually people running tournaments, and of course there were people running tournaments, and that's when I learned about professional StarCraft. That moved on to Evo, which is the fighting game scene in '09, which was kind of the big spike for the fighting game scene because I believe G4 or it might no, it was maybe Tech TV then decided to cover it for whatever reason. They had Adam Sessler, not Sandler, uh, commentate a couple of matches, and that's when I got addicted to it. I heard about it, and I was never a big Street Fighter guy because that was before my time. But watching that, I got addicted to that, and then I also somehow learned about speed running throughout those time because I was streaming, uh, watching streams. I started watching streams, gaming streams when I was on livestream.com, and then it moved to Ustream, and then it moved to Justin.tv, and then it moved finally to Twitch, where now it's exploded by. I mean, the reason Twitch came up was because Justin TV was just getting so many you know, gaming streams up there, and yeah, I mean, this is where, like I said, it's gaming for me went from becoming just playing video games to being an actual like almost like a way of life to an extent. That's a little extreme, but I mean, and to an extent, it is. Like, if people talk to me, if you ask me, like, so what is the thing that you have the most knowledge about, or you can keep up a conversation with? It's video games. What is the thing I can, probably has, my most knowledge in, like, creating it even, is probably video games. Just playing video games and learning everything about it is just, it exploded this generation, and I don't really play video games all that much anymore. I've been playing a little bit more lately, but I stopped playing for a while, but I kept watching them and I kept, learning about them and stuff like that.
Yeah, I mean, I kind of did the same thing for a while. I kind of wasn't playing as much, but I would still go to Giant Bomb and watch quick looks, even with games I knew I wasn't going to play, just because I like to hear them talk about it and just kind of see what was going on.
Yeah. Oh, Patrick Klepek wrote about the collusion. Collusion. I mean, that's all I have really. Is anything to say? Do you have anything else you want to finish up for this generation?
I think that's most of it. Well, maybe let's talk about. Well, I guess we kind of did, but maybe like kind of where we're at as far as what we play, and then kind of like how we were influenced from our past. For
Uh,
me,
Go ahead.
I kind of got burnt out in first-person shooters for the most part. Um, After I feel like Modern Warfare 2. was kind of when it sunk in that I was like, yeah, I think I'm done with this. It is, at least as far as straightforward military shooters. I mostly Call of Duty games, but then the broader, just like straightforward first-person shooters. You know, like I've played some Battlefield 3, but for me that's more about the big group stuff and all the vehicles and all that. But and even that I haven't played that much recently. But for me, yeah, less about that, and I've been playing a lot more strategy, story, and been trying different MOBAs and things like that. So I've kind of just been trying different things just because I kind of get sick of playing the same type of game over and over. Or even even game like Bioshock Infinite's a first person shooter, but I played it for the story. Whereas like a Call of Duty game, the story doesn't draw me in. I don't care about
You don't like Michael
generic.
Bay movies?
Yeah, I don't. I really don't. I don't like generic military dudes who run around yelling. It's just not interesting to me. I'm sure that it is possible for them to make a Call of Duty game that would have an interesting story, but it would just. I would first of all have to realize that the characters are unique and have personality. You know, things that games don't do at all.
Well, I mean, for the longest time, at least not for the longest time, for like during Call of Duty Modern Warfare 1 and Modern Warfare 2, their character was basically like a Gordon Freeman, where he was a part of the team, but he didn't speak really.
Hmm.
And so, like, there's twist, spoiler that sometimes your character died and you pick someone else up.
Yeah,
But even then, like, you just didn't care that much. Then finally, they started, you started playing as Soap over constant amount of games. You started, Captain Price, I think, is still going to be in these games or something like that. And it's another, actually, I mean, there's apparently the big draw of the next one is supposed to be single player more than multiplayer. So that'd be interesting.
yeah,
Like, I don't plan on buying it, but
exactly. Um, yeah, I mean, for me, it's like even if your main character isn't interesting, at least make the people he's interacting with interesting. You know what I mean?
you don't
Because
play.
the I feel like the having the main character talk will become more popular. But even if you don't have that, at least to make the people around you interesting. Whereas in like Call of Duty games, I don't care about any of the characters around him.
Yeah,
You
it's
know what
just
I
a
mean?
military thing.
Eh, I don't. I feel like even what is that game? Bad Company. I feel like at least even though that one's kind of silly, they did at least try to have personality with the guys in your crew. So even something like that could work.
Those were good
Um,
commercials.
hmm?
I don't remember the commercials, but those were good commercials. Bad
I don't
Company
remember.
2.
Oh, okay. I
That was
don't really
actually the
remember.
reason I ended up buying it on Steam, even though I haven't played much through it.
Nice. I think I actually own it too.
Yeah, I even have it installed. 35 minutes played. What's up?
Nice. I've only played the multiplayer on it, I believe. It's Battlefield Bad Company.
Yeah.
Yeah, Battlefield Bad Company too. And 9 hours played. Wow. All right, I guess I played quite a bit of that game. Not
Word.
quite a bit, but I played a decent chunk.
So yeah, I mean, you want to talk about like how our past influenced us. Well, like the biggest thing to me I've noticed, there's two things I feel like I'm very confident in myself of saying is that one, I do like management gaming, even though I don't necessarily want to learn it, which is kind of a bad mix. But uh, like Civ 5 is probably a game I would end up liking. I played a couple of tutorials a couple of days ago, and it was fun. I was getting it or whatever. But I like management. That's why Minecraft for a while was kind of something I liked. Um, so I like management games, and I think that probably stems from me playing StarCraft as my first game, basically. You know, um, and then the other one was that I'm a social gamer. Like, I think one of the major reasons I don't play many video games now is that it's it feels lonely to me. I would rather watch someone play than me play a game by myself generally. And that's not
Mm.
always true, but about 99% of the time, which is why I like streaming because I got the most two recent games I got through were probably Ni no Kuni and Tomb Raider. Ni no Kuni was just a fun game, and I ended up liking it. So I mean, there's still games that if it's fun, I'll play them. But I would have actually preferred if someone was there with me to like tell me which characters to use or where to go or what to do, and just because video games to me is just such an easy topic to kind of talk about. I can talk about one. We can pick a game, run one random game, for like next week, let's say, and it could be a random game. I'll do some research on it, and I feel like we can talk 2 hours on it for whatever random game it is.
Mm-hmm.
We can talk about how the gameplay is good or bad, or their decisions for this or that, and stuff like that. And it's so easy for me. So social gaming has become my major thing, which is why I generally like watching stuff because you know, even though they're not really talking to me specifically, it still feels nice to feel like I'm playing with someone.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's probably my biggest thing. That's like, and like I was saying when I was talking about my past, everything was about me playing with my brother, me playing with my dad, me playing with my cousin, and that's just how I've always been throughout my whole life, and it's kind of kept with me. It's just a lot
Yeah.
easier now.
I kind of go through phases where like I just want to play a single player game for a while, but then I do like the more playing online with people to talk with them, like we do all the time, because it is nice to talk to someone else while you're playing. But some games, like The Walking Dead, is the type of game that I don't really want to talk to someone else while I'm playing it. You know what I mean? Because I just want to focus on the experience. You know what I mean? Whereas like Saints Row is the type of game where it's like you're not taking it seriously and it's supposed to be funny, so it's even more fun if you're just sitting there laughing with a friend at it.
Intro 2 is very serious. What are you talking about?
No, it's not.
It is actually pretty serious. If you like, it's
Not the character creator.
Saints Row 2.
Yeah.
What's so joke? I mean, it gives you more
No,
options.
you can like make a dude have a bra and stuff, right?
Well, yeah. I mean, it gives you options, but like the actual story, if you
Oh, okay.
actually like look at the storyline, the storyline includes your character, one of your lieutenants being dragged around on the street by a monster truck. You bury a guy alive. You also what else is there? One of the rival gangs cuts off their lieutenant's ears for a punishment. It's just like it has a bunch of like crazy kind of dark stuff, but then they'll say like they'll make a joke about like a stripper pole or something like
Yeah, exactly.
that. But it's not quite like Saints Row 3 was, where it was completely balls
Ridiculous.
to the wall,
Yeah.
and especially Saints Row 4, which looks even weirder. Because at least in Saints Row 3, it was just kind of like so Saints Row 2. I would say Saints Row 2 is kind of like a um how do I describe it? Like kind of like a movie where just like a general movie where there's some serious stuff, there's some comedy. It's not all. They're not trying to be dead serious. They're not trying to really necessarily get emotions from you. And then
Right.
Saints Row 3 was kind of like a sitcom, I would say, where they did some wacky stuff that would never happen in real life, but it wasn't like completely weird. And then Saints Row 4 looks to be like a cartoon, where it's just like it's weird and it just breaks reality like crazy.
Yeah. Breaks the third wall or the fourth wall.
Breaks the
I think
second wall.
breaks all the walls. Okay.
No, it just breaks the second and third wall. Anyways,
Nice.
I think that's it. That's our gaming history. Do you have anything else?
I think that's it.
I mean, there's a lot of games I think we didn't talk about.
Oh yeah, there's a million different games. I mean, the point wasn't to talk about every single game we've ever
Yeah.
played because I've played a lot of video games. Too many.
So yeah, hope you guys enjoyed. This is probably a long video. Hopefully it's good, and see you guys later. Adios.
See ya.